Optics damaged. He lifted his head and saw light, and understood what had happened. The bullet had struck his rifle. It smashed the lower edge of the scope, damaging it so badly the module popped off its mount. It hit the side of his mask, cracking the nano-woven plasteel casing. A nasty gash bled heavily on his right temple. The assassin was saved only because he had pressed his face to the ground, not looking down the scope. Hold fire. Optics damaged. Locating target. Raising his head, REIT positioned it so the Exodus lined up with his eyes. Using the mask's ballistic computer, he adjusted the rear sight and brought the rifle to bear. He didn't even zoom in with the built-in magnacle, he was rushing to avoid a second shot. REIT had survived this moment only because Alphys saw the blood splatter and believed him dead. Just front and rear sights. At this range, it was little better than shooting blind. He noticed a hairline crack along the rifle stock, starting where the optical sight was mounted and running 13 centimeters toward the barrel. Firing would worsen the damage and might miss the hybrid altogether. But he would definitely hit the swollen wasp nest. Absalom fired 4 turbo-penetrator rounds. With every shot, the crack grew, creeping toward the barrel. Seeing such damage nearly brought on a wave of nausea. REIT quickly brought the magnacle of his recon mask onto Alpha's position. He saw her fleeing, rifle in hand, sliding down the Pilgrim rig's frame like an arachnid. Behind her swarmed a cloud of desert wasps from a shattered nest. She headed for the dirt bike waiting at the base of the rig, hidden behind the bare feet of a statue tower so REIT wouldn't spot it approaching. Typical Alpha's tactic, shoot and run. The Vindicare couldn't hope to hit a moving target. With the crack in the Exodus barrel, it had become unstable. Absalom felt the damage like a broken limb, a dull, nagging ache in the bone, held at bay by combat stimulants and mental discipline. Stim stabilizers flooded his system, easing nausea and steadying his nerves. So, no shot at the hybrid, without optics and with a loose barrel, impossible. But he could take out the stationary dirt bike. He shifted his aim and clicked the fire selector, chambering a round from another magazine slot. Ballistic calculations filled his vision. REIT exhaled slowly, pressing the rifle stock hard into his shoulder, feeling the bone press back. The Exodus sent 2 rounds of hellfire, driven by Prayer and Facellin, toward the target. After the second shot, the crack ran to the front sight, and the rifle's body split apart. But so did the dirt bike. The first round hit low, between the wheels, kicking up sand around the tires. The second ignited the Prometheum tank, and the bike, engulfed in flames, flipped forward. REIT sprang into action. With deft hands, he released a quick-release latch, detached the barrel, and secured it in a leg loop. He flipped the Exodus body to keep it from hindering his movements. He had to reach Alphys before she got moving again. Cover 1.5 miles. Close the distance, even though she still had a rifle, unlike him. A dust trail appeared to his left. The Jackal Pack was rushing to aid their leader. Target called in motorcycle scouts. Looks like she chose to eliminate the threat, not run. Probably figured I'd remain a danger if I lived, or considered me a military asset worth killing. He couldn't guarantee a hit on the hybrid, but had definitely strike the wasp nest swelling just behind her. Absalom fired 4 turbo-penetrator rounds. With each shot, the hairline crack along the rifle's stock widened, creeping closer to the barrel. The damage made his stomach lurch, but he forced it down. Snapping the magnocular of his recon mask toward the Alpha's position, he caught sight of her fleeing, rifle in hand, sliding down the rusted scaffold of the Pilgrim like some spider-born thing. A furious swarm of desert wasps boiled after her, driven from their shattered nest. She was heading for a dirt cycle stashed at the Pilgrim's base, concealed behind the bare feet of a statue tower, out of sight from Wraith when had first arrived. Classic Alpha tactic, shoot and vanish. Wraith couldn't land a shot on a moving target now. The barrel of his Exodus was unstable, the crack like a fractured bone pulsing with ghost pain. Combat drugs dulled the ache, but he still felt it in the marrow of his arms. The rifle had become part of him, damaged and grieving. But he could hit the stationary bike. Shifting his aim, he thumbed the shot selector, loading a round from another chamber. The mask's HUD flickered with ballistic calculations. Wraith exhaled slow, anchoring the stock deep into his shoulder until he felt it press against bone. The Exodus barked twice, hellfire shells hurled toward the target, propelled by prayers and Faisleen. After the second shot, the fracture reached the iron sight. The rifle's frame cracked open. So did the motorcycle. The first round struck low, kicking up sand between the tires. The second ignited the Promethium tank, and the dirt bike flipped end over end in a fireball. Wraith was already moving. With practiced ease, he unclipped the quick-release latches, slid the broken barrel free and locked it into the thigh loop. The Exodus body went over his back, out of the way. He had to reach the Alpha, fast. 1.5 kilometers of open terrain. And she still had a rifle. He did not. Dust kicked up to his left. The jackals were closing in. She called in bike scouts, he muttered. Chose to eliminate the threat instead of running. Figures I'd still be dangerous alive, or maybe she sees me as a military asset worth killing. Wraith switched the cogitator to short-range tactical mode. Engaging. The hybrids attacked like the beasts they were named for, howling, shrieking, engines roaring like hell-burnt wolves. Their dirt cycles weaved erratically, kicking up fans of glassy grit. One quad, massive and snorting, launched off a chunk of wreckage, slammed down hard, suspension groaning. Flames danced at the mouth of its incinerator. The rider wore a spherical drilling helmet, like the kind used for wild promethium digging, where the fumes alone could choke a man to death. They came on, autoguns blazing, muzzle flashes popping like fireflies. At this range, it was more for show, rounds slapped the dust to Wraith's left or zipped high overhead. The jackals had none of their leader's precision. And she still needed another full minute to find a proper firing position. Absalom slowed his pace, tracking the incoming bikers. He braced 1 foot forward, steadying himself for the shot. Through the optics of his mask, the riders lit up in red, targets prioritized by threat. Heavy weapons first. Then long range. 15 of them. Far too many for Wraith to eliminate before they closed the gap. But he formed a plan. Picked his targets. Mapped out their deaths in sequence. His hand dropped to the Exodus pistol holstered at his side. He waited until the jackals were close enough. Activating kill probability display. Digital markers hovered above each biker, distance numbers ticking rapidly down. In range. He drew the pistol and opened fire. Each shot landed with a rhythmic, comforting crack, mechanical and absolute. The first round punched straight through a quad's chassis. The turbopenetrator burrowed through the engine block in staged melta detonations, then ignited the dual fuel tanks at the rear. A twin-staged explosion erupted. The driver flailed in fire for a heartbeat before the second tank went up, turning the wolf into a tumbling ball of flame. Second and third shots, 2 bikers riding side by side. Lucky. 2 flashes. 2 kills. One hybrid's ribcage imploded. He jerked the handlebars in death, sending the front wheel skidding, launching his corpse over the saddle. His partner simply slumped, a fist-sized hole in his skull. Fourth round. Hit the shoulder. The arm holding a lit charge went flying. A ruby streak of blood shimmered through the brown-orange dust just before the explosive detonated, flinging a cone of dark soil skyward. Fifth round. Like a sacred fifth task. Wraith snapped the pistol toward another jackal. The rider spotted the large-caliber weapon and panicked, jerked sideways, smashing into a nearby bike. The 2 hybrids collapsed in a twisted knot of metal and broken limbs. No need to waste a bullet. A round from an autopistol whined past Absalom, grazing close enough to whisper heat. He dropped to one knee, minimizing his profile, lining up his next shot. The Exodus pistol kicked. The jackal flew backwards, and the rider behind him struggled with a failing steering column. The shot had sheared through the drive shaft, still slick with the first hybrid's violet ichor. Wraith rolled to the side as another hybrid barreled past, a miner's pick cleaving empty air where had just been. A shotgun blast ripped open the synth leather over his bicep. He felt a single pellet dig in, but the suit contracted, stanching the bleed. Jackals roared past, guns blazing, circling like predators on the scent. It was a storm of bullets and snarling engines. Wraith dodged and spun, rolled and leapt. Augmented senses, implants, and surgical upgrades fused with brutal training turned every movement into a dance of survival. He slipped between bullets. Even when one struck his chest, the synth-leather absorbed most of the impact, though a rib cracked beneath. The jackals had him surrounded, but that worked in his favor. His agility made them risk friendly fire with every shot. Still, he had seconds left, no more. A solid round slammed into his back. He staggered. The mask's display blinked out. Hit to the ballistic cogitator, a reinforced case centered on his spine. Without it, he'd be dead. One shot left. One last round in the magazine. One chance to break the ring of fire. Through the mask, he marked a wolf, its mounted heavy stubber tracking him slowly, its servos lagging behind the assassin's speed. He calculated its trajectory and lunged forward. The rider, a ribbed forehead brute, lavender-skinned and snarling, gunned the quad at Wraith, trying to crush him under its growling weight. Wraith caught a flash of sun on the lights, a sneer behind the grill. He raised the pistol. The rider flinched, exactly as expected. Instinct won out. The hybrid squeezed both brake handles. The quad jerked to a halt. Wraith sidestepped gracefully. In his left hand, the mag clamp. He latched onto the side of the stubber mount and hauled himself up. A baseline human would have had an arm torn from its socket. But Wraith was something else. Closer to a legend than a man. Pistol holstered. He climbed onto the rear of the wolf, gripping the handles of the heavy stubber. The servos resisted, auto-targeting still engaged. Wraith threw his weight against the gun, wrestling it by sheer will, wrenching it around in a wide arc. The perforated barrel swung over the side of the quad, locking onto the circling horde. Wraith pulled the trigger. Solid slugs screamed from the barrel, the muzzle flare blazing like a burning cross. Bullets tore through the clustered jackals, ripping them from saddles, sending their bodies skidding across unyielding earth. One of the cultists twisted in his saddle and opened wild fire at the stolen quad. Rounds sparked off its armored shell, whining past Absalom, until one lucky shot blew the rider's brains across the handlebars. The dead hybrid slumped forward, and the wolf veered sharply, nearly flipping. Wraith didn't wait. He jumped, landing in a crouch, and fired his last round. The jackal had been shooting crumpled mid-howl, hellfire round boring through his belly, snapping his spine in two. And then silence. He was alone. 6 remaining hybrids were already retreating, engines howling, fading to specks in the corner of his compromised vision. The wolf, with its headless rider slumped over the bars, coasted forward and stalled. Wraith swore. They were headed back to the Pilgrim, to the Alpha. That's why she hadn't fired. She'd decided she'd lost enough already and now she was making her escape. 9 bike scouts dead. 6 in retreat, he muttered. 2 options, they're either going to set up cover for her to snipe me from distance or help her evacuate. Either way, it didn't matter. Killing the rest of the jackals meant nothing. Vindicators' success wasn't measured in body count. Only in the target's death. Even if Wraith wiped out half the gene-stealer hybrids on Gavia, his temple would still deem the mission a failure. He wasn't sent here to cull Xenos, that was work for the Astra Militarum, the Astartes, or even golden-helmed custodes. Wraith was sent to kill the Alpha. He slammed a fresh 6-round mag into the Exodus pistol, swung a leg over the wolf, and hit the throttle. The engine howled, spitting dust in wild fans behind him. He chose the wolf because it was big and loud, fast but stable. Its turret could be set to fire autonomously, and with luck, might scatter the enemy enough to keep them from aiming clean. Point it right at them. Trust the Emperor. Hope the wolf reached them before they vanished. When the Alpha had received her orders from Lord Mescalva, Archmagus of the Burning Chorva, they had been crystal clear: kill the Imperials. Hunt them. Wipe out their commanders. Cut supply lines. Sow terror and confusion. And disappear. Martyrdom was never part of the plan. There would be no glory. Not even a name remembered. Her sacrifice was anonymity, offered to the star gods. The enemy was not meant to know her. Only feel her presence through destruction. Pride, ego, irrelevant. Dying for the cause was someone else's job. Her duty was to survive. To kill, escape, and kill again. She couldn't be captured. She couldn't be eliminated. The terror had to continue. So when her jackals failed to bring down the sniper, she pulled them back. Fewer casualties. They had wheels, he didn't. His weapon was broken. Victory through escape. She was halfway down the scaffold of the Pilgrim, rifle slung across her back, when she heard the whine of a quad engine. She froze. Jackal pack, report positions, she hissed into the vox. Speaking had grown harder lately. Her needle-like teeth had elongated, slurring her sibilants and sending drool down her chin. An irritation, but a blessing from the Father Chorva nonetheless. Base of the tower, mother of pack. Ready for departure. Status on the wolf quads. A hiss, then a voice, cold with restrained fury. Both riders dead, mother. The sniper was as you warned. Skilled. She snarled, barbed teeth clacking. This assassin had taken too much from her already, her custom dirt bike, the satisfaction of a clean kill, 9 genetically bonded kin. 6 weeks ago, the cult's nexus found the first bodies, torn open by rounds the size of autocannon shells. He warned them. An Imperial agent was in the sector. Something new. The assassin had stalked her for nearly a full lunar cycle. She'd hoped to slip away again. But now he was chasing her on a quad. Unclipping a cable, she threaded it through a support strut, hooking it to the carabiner on her harness. She was nearly at the base. A few meters above the counterweight system powering the Pilgrim's massive arm. Too low for a visual. The engine sound grew. She drew her rifle, bracing it against her shoulder, feet steady on the struts, weight in the line. Through the scope, her mutant eyes gauged distance perfectly. Her twisted ears calculated the machine's approach by pitch and tone. As the quad crested the hill, it filled her sights. Rust red. Shot to hell. Its turret still spinning, spraying random fire. The mask that damned faceless mask staring right at her. She fired. The rifle kicked her shoulder. She saw him jerk, saw the bone punch through his chest. But he didn't fall. He rocked back and kept driving. The wolf's gun chattered on, rounds rattling the scaffolding around her. Star gods, he won't die. Jackals, fire at will. Let Father Chorva's fury guide your aim. She racked the bolt, loaded another round. Sighted on the mask. Perfect shot. She squeezed the trigger. The mask caved inward, fragments blasting into his skull. His head snapped back, nearly taken clean off. Auto pistols and scatter rounds whistled past the wolf. One lucky shot shattered a front light. Still it surged forward, like a corpse seeking vengeance. A trick. Her eyes went wide. It's a trap. She screamed into the vox. He's loaded it with explosives. Stop that emperor-damned quad. 6 jackals opened fire. Metallic hail tore paint from the hull, shredded the corpse, ripped through tires. The wolf slowed, crawling now on ruined rims. The Alpha peered through her scope, searching the quad's rear. There, a block, strapped to the cargo rack. Black timer. Wire antenna. She fired. The round punched a neat hole into the clay-colored explosive. It wasn't enough. Still lethal. Still live. She banished all thought. Let the hidden thing inside her take control. The deeper self. The outer mind. Timeless. Vast. Alien. Breath slowed. The world followed. The crosshairs found the detonator. She pulled the trigger, slow and sure. The mechanism exploded in a puff of fragments. The quad rammed into the Pilgrim's base with a metallic thud, harmless. No detonation. One less Imperial agent. Another notch on her rifle. That's when she realized the gunfire hadn't stopped. And now there were screams. Engaging. Wraith came from the flank, a blur of motion and hate. He killed 2 jackals before they even saw him. They'd all been fixated on the quad, on the corpse. He saw his beloved mask shatter, saw pieces of it fall away. And he winced. For that loss, for the damage to his sacred exodus, had be condemned to agonizing penitence. He poured that fury into the remaining cultists. One hybrid fell with a broken spine, pistol grip hammered into the base of his neck. Another turned, firing wildly. Wraith grabbed the dying body, used it as a shield. Felt it jerk in his arms as rounds tore through. Then the exodus barked. An inferno round ripped open the throat of the shooter. How had Wraith reached them? Head sprinted through a long dried creek that once ran beside the pilgrim. The ground was littered with stones, and he moved so fast even his enhanced muscles burned with lactic fire. His first shot rang out just as the hybrids opened fire on the quad. A cultist with a shotgun turned toward him, but Wraith dove behind 2 of his own, using them as cover to vanish from view. His lack of mask bought him a fraction of hesitation. The creature paused, unsure if this was friend or foe. Wraith saw that flicker of doubt in the hybrid's eyes, just before he leveled him with a shot. The second target got a boot to the spine, sent tumbling into the shotgun wielder, then Wraith pumped a turbo penetrator through them both. Dropping to one knee, staying below a biker's firing line, he snapped a round into the cultist's gut. The exit wound tore his organs loose in a wet burst. 6 kills in 3 seconds. 1 round left. One final target. He dove into the shadow of the tower just as the Alpha's shot split the earth beside him. Perfect timing. Head calculated her field of fire, predicted her need to reposition. And now, Shed revealed herself. Vaulting from cover, Wraith raised the Exodus. There, suspended from the frame by a cable. She was cycling the bolt of an absurdly long rifle. A risky shot. No cogitator. No range-finding HUD. Just iron sights and intuition. Engaging target, Wraith murmured into his throat vox. He pulled the trigger. The Exodus bucked in his hands. He felt the bolt snap back, sharp and final. Above him, a shriek of pain. Then the rain of shattered parts, tubing, scraps, debris. Head hit the weapon. Destroyed it. Target still alive, he whispered. Ammunition depleted. The Alpha's hand darted to her back, sunlight catching the glint of a pistol. She fired. Bullets pinged off the deck plates. Wraith ducked behind the scaffold. Then, silence. Slaps of flesh on steel. She was climbing. Target ascending. Pursuing. Wraith unclipped the monofilament coil from his pack, shifted it to his chest harness. He slotted a magnetic grapple into the barrel of his Exodus. No rifle. Just the pistol now. The Pilgrim had stood 5 centuries, a sacred machine that once pumped promethium from Gavia's crust. At the summit, the horizon tilted with every sway, like standing on the deck of a ship. The Alpha pulled herself up, panting. Her muscles trembled. Pinkish-violet blood oozed from her bandaged arm. The chemical round had melted her rifle, and 2 fingers. Her face burned with acidic spray. Touching her brow, she felt bone. In time, the star gods would restore her. If she killed the fanatic chasing her. She reached for her pistol, aiming it down the ladder. Waiting. Watching. A dart slammed into the weapon with a metallic ping. It was ripped from her grasp. She spun, and saw him, standing atop the statue pump's crown. His hood rippled in the wind. A monofilament tether wrapped around one arm, trailing back to a magnetic dart. He reeled in the pistol, then flung it into the void. After that quad trick, she hissed, I should have known you wouldn't chase me directly. I learned the first time, Wraith said. Chasing you is bad for my health. He advanced. Carefully. Steady. The moving balance platform shifted beneath his feet, one moment climbing, the next descending. Wraith dropped into a low stance, left hand extended defensively, right gripping a near half-meter blade. Its matte black finish gleamed faintly in the sun. Only the razor-thin edge, wire-like and deadly, caught the light. The Alpha laughed, a shrill, buzzing sound, and drew her own blade. A 30-centimeter serrated knife, poisoned and cruel, used both for carving sniper nests and taking trophies from corpses. They made you, she hissed. And you are good, little construct. But I am flesh of the star gods. Born to kill. You're nothing without your tools. No, Wraith replied. My tools are nothing without me. I am the trained killer. Then she lunged. Low, fast, like a predatory insect. Using one arm to drive herself forward, her speed blurred the world around her. The air shimmered with heat and momentum. She hissed with every breath, needle-like teeth clashing in anticipation. She could smell his blood. She could already taste it, warm and metallic, pouring down her throat. She was sure the strike would land. Knife aimed low, angled for the soft spot beneath his clavicle. Instinct guided her, the rhythm of her heart's hammering a divine cadence. This was killing as it was meant to be, not taught, not trained, but bestowed. Wraith read her angle. Intercepted with his left arm, hard and precise. The bones in her wrist shattered like dry twigs against the reinforced edge of his palm. Her blade clattered harmlessly to the steel deck between them. And in her alien eyes, Wraith saw it, she felt everything. Every sensation, amplified. Which is why he saw the moment agony took her. When his blade carved into the thick meat of her throat. Because Absalom Wraith knew how to cut a throat. The guide for 9 days, Jezet Val lived in darkness. The stench of unwashed bodies and the throbbing heat of reactor cores beneath her boots were all she knew. On the 4th day, some tried to escape. They were tech thralls and info-slaves, servants of the blessed Omnissiah. Men and women who had lived their lives aboard void ships, some born in steel wombs, others molded by decades in engine-choked cathedrals. They knew how to access service ducts, even in the secured belly of a prison transport. Jezet was an engine wright aboard the Castillas Theorem, a privileged post by some standards. She wasn't invited to the escape attempt. Even now, with the crew executed and the survivors stuffed into the hold like cattle, hierarchy endured. In the void, there were only 2 kinds of people, those who held the 9-tailed lash, and those who bore the scars. That's why the low-deck Voidborn didn't trust mid-tier techs like Jezet. Their plan was simple, reach the reactor and overload it. They didn't get more than 3 meters. High in the rafters, telescopic lenses watched them. Then came the wings. Half organic. Half machine. Predators dropped like iron shadows, claws shattering limbs, snapping spines. Flechette carbines stitched red across the deck, turning 6 prisoners into pulp, and just as quickly, the attackers vanished. Back into the dark. Watching again. No one else tried to escape. 5 days later, the survivors stirred uneasily. A shudder ran through the deck, planetfall. The ship had landed. Then came the hiss of decompression. The crowd surged toward the aft ramp, Jezet crushed among them. Open it. She cried, as elbows dug into her ribs. By the Omnissiah, open the damned ramp. When the boarding ramp dropped, they were blinded by sunlight, bouncing off snow. Whispers turned to screams. As her ocular implants adjusted, Jezet saw the back rank spark, taser prods flickering with cold blue arcs. The guards didn't aim to kill, only corral. Jezet realized what would come next. Don't rush. She shouted. Go slow or, too late. Bodies surged forward. A flood. Half a dozen tech thralls fell, trampled into the deck. Outside, the prisoners were funneled into a trench, leading toward a colossal dome. The sun scorched their pale void-born skin. Eyes watered under its fury. Their lungs, used to stale shipboard air, burned with the raw sharpness of atmosphere rich in oxygen, and cold as a blade. Blizzards rolled in like ghosts, coating the prisoners in sheets of white. Snow clung to skin and rags alike, drawing gasps and shouts, amplified by their vox units. Jezet had heard of such storms once, but couldn't recall the word for them. To the right loomed a towering glacier shelf, its wind-polished face glowing the same sharp blue as the taser prods of their jailers. And ahead a frozen station awaited. She didn't know why they were spared. Why the Hairtech pirates had slaughtered the rest of the Castillas Theorem's crew, but rounded up people from every deck, every division. Rank and origin no longer mattered. Now, only one thing united them, the interface port at the base of every Voidborn's skull. The data jack. The tether to the machine god. The station gates yawned open before them like a hungry maw. Soon, you will awaken, came a voice from the display screens. They were everywhere, mounted to machinery, curved into the walls of the dome. Each screen showed only half a face, a jaundiced nose and chin, a mouth with blackened teeth. Feeding tubes curled into both nostrils. The image flickered and swam, and the voice was out of sync with its lips. Moisture damage, Jessit muttered to herself. Her engineer's mind clung to analysis, a shield against fear. The interior heats creating condensation. They were funneled into a maze of steel pens, forced to move in single file. You will become one of us, the voice said again. Your place will be made clear. Abandon the falsehoods of your omniscia, nothing but superstitions in machine code and incense. We will unlock and reformat you. You shall serve the eightfold strength, in glory to the Renewer, Lord of Transfiguration. Kavarian has come to liberate you. Embrace the Chorvescence. The name turned her stomach. Gisette's ocular implants crashed in a minor reboot, leaving her blind for 2.7 seconds. Kavarian. Head vanished. And now overhead, Skitarii patrols moved with inhuman calm, prodding the herd forward with shock batons. Their violet optics scanned the trembling crowd without emotion. How many have they taken already? Jessit wondered. She ran quick calculations, using the patterns of the cages and crowd flow. 900. Maybe more. Then they turned a corner, and she saw what awaited them. 2 Skitarii harvesters stepped forward, their augmetic limbs built for restraint. They seized a trembling infoslave near the front of the line. He whimpered but didn't resist. The years aboard the Mechanicu's ship had taught him compliance. Metal arms gripped shoulders and waist. A claw clamped his skull, positioning it. A man in a dark robe stepped from the shadows, expressionless, carrying a dripping data spike. A thick cable snaked behind him. Accept the Chorvescence, he intoned. Be made new by the eightfold strength. With steady hand, he drove the spike into the port at the slave's skull. By the grace of Programmer Kavarian, I, Slav Igor Alpha, 208, hereby reformat you. You are now a servant of the Lord of Transfiguration. The man's glowing cyber eyes flickered, then flushed violet pink. The Skitarii released him. He stumbled, twitched then lurched into the crowd of converted thralls. They swayed like newborn Grok's calves, barely upright, minds still reeling from the violent expansion the essence forced upon them. Next. Slav Igor lifted a thick, gold-plated spike, wider than a spearhead. His eyes met Gisette's. That one, he said. Bring her. Hands clamped her shoulders. She struggled as they forced her down, pressing her face to the grating. Don't resist, Slav Igor said, dipping the spike into a vat. The scent of coolant and disinfectant filled the air. You'll only break your bones. Damn you to the scrap heap, Jessit growled. You and every last Hairtech with you. May your databanks fail. May your augmetic seize, tch Slav Igor hushed her, approaching with mock delicacy. You're a feisty one. Not your average servitor, are you? His fingers brushed the barcode on her neck. The data reader buzzed. Engine right, Tier 3 No wonder. You weren't bred to obey, were you? The Omniscia will come for us, she spat into the floor. Hell burn you out of this ice world and grind you into sacred dust. Slav Igor crouched down to her eye level. No one is coming, engine right Vol. 10,000 have passed through here. Not one Skitarii. No guardsman. No golden angel from the Astartes. No one came for them. No one will come for you. He waved the spike in front of her. But once I plug this in, you'll stop fighting too. Identify and clarify. The cold command hit them from the left. Slav Igor froze. The grip on Gisette's skull loosened, just enough for her to turn her head. The voice came not from the Skitarii holding her, but from its Vox unit. The one from the screens. Kavarian. This unit is Slav Igor Alpha 208. Programmer Lord. Reformatter of Stream 6. I serve the eightfold strength with joy. Target quota, 241 conversions. Recruitment at your post has ceased, said the voice through the Skitarius. Current throughput is 19% below optimal, based on the last 50 conversions. Explain. The Skitarius optics shifted, growing harsh, twin beams of violet light piercing through the haze. Programmer Lord, I encountered a high-value candidate, Slav Igor replied, his voice taut. An engine right. I am evaluating her potential for special tasks. Do it in the inspection chamber, Alpha 208. Resume intake flow. Hurry, or I'll send you for organic repurposing. Yes, my lord, Slav Igor bowed low. For the eightfold strength. Do not interrupt me again, the voice warned. The Skitarius' eyes dimmed. Lift her, Slav Igor barked, handing the infospike to an aide. Now. The chamber was nearly bare, lit only by surgical lamps that hummed overhead. Vol was strapped into a restraint chair, iron clasps locking her wrists and ankles. Slav Igor ushered the guards out to resume processing the line. Soundproofed, he said, sealing the door. Lucky woman, Jezit Vol. Do you realize that? She snorted. Because I get to keep a bit of my mind, like you. Because you'll bend me, not break me. Come closer, I'll rip your throat out. Oh, you're clever. Brave, too. Exactly what I need. He smiled, a grotesque distortion of a face no longer built for warmth. Dragging a stool to a tray of rusted surgical tools, Slav Igor straddled the seat, arms folded over the backrest. His gaze locked on her augmetic eyes. So. Let me ask you one thing. Want to serve the Omnissiah one last time? Her mouth opened, but the words caught in her throat. Answer quickly. We don't have long. Her breath hitched. Panic cracked through the dam. Yes. Can you shoot a pistol? What? This, Slav Igor said, drawing a long, sleek weapon from beneath his robe. Catter-patter needle gun. Silent. Delayed activation darts. Drum mag holds 100. But don't squeeze the trigger, tap it. Otherwise, you'll dump the entire mag. You hear me? Yes. Good. He aimed the weapon at the door, eyes wary. Pick a target. Aim. 1 or 2 darts to the head or chest. Shoot the purple-eyed bastards at point blank. Don't miss. Who? You'll sow chaos. Panic. Everyone will run. Perfect. Exactly what I need. Kill. Vanish. Kill again. The longer you stay alive, the more disruption you cause. Don't get caught. He pressed the pistol into her hand, his gnarled fingers locking hers tight around the grip. You came to save us? She asked. I don't save people. I have other objectives. But if you follow the plan, you'll help me burn this place to the ground. Understand? Jezit took a shuddering breath, calmed the war drum in her chest, and nodded. The restraints released with a hiss and a clank. Omnissiah bless you, Jezit Vol, Slav Igor whispered, unbarring the door. Now go. Unleash your fury. The engine right, 3rd tier, servant of the machine god, stepped into the corridor and opened fire. Chaos erupted. Sycoraxa, agent of the Calidus temple, limped away from the whistle of flying darts. She clutched her side, red seeping into Alpha 208's uniform. Gun. She bleated, mimicking Slav Igor's rasp, shouldering her way through the newly converted. Gunfire and screams echoed through the vaulted station. She has a weapon. Skitarii scattered. Sycoraxa stepped aside, let them pass, then turned deeper into the station's veins. Perfect. Recruitment day was always chaotic, but today was mayhem incarnate. This was what she needed. The Zeta I station normally ran like a cogitator core, every soul ticking in place. Most thralls below management rank were locked into the neural network. Any deviation from routine triggered Kavarian's attention, his mind slipping through the back doors in their warped minds, seizing control. But now. Chaos. Confusion. Minds unmoored. And cowardly Slav Igor. Running from the noise, as expected. It was lucky, truly, that Kavarian hadn't overridden her yet, hadn't reached directly into her skull. Because if he had, he might realize the machine spirit inside her wasn't his at all. Not even close. This infiltration was wearing thin. Psychoraxa loathed playing Slav Igor. Corrupting one thrall after another. Breaking minds, enforcing cruelty, performing evil, not just witnessing it. But there was solace in one thought: the real Alpha 208 was dead. Killed by her poison blade, venom delivered straight to the carotid. His body now slurry, dissolved in the protein pits. Justice for countless conversions. She remembered her own arrival at Zeta Station. The prisoners had howled, like newborns in mourning. Reduced by fear to their most basic instincts. Psychoraxa had lain among the frozen corpses, half buried in snow, swaddled in rags. Motionless. Breathless. Shed spent the night like that, waiting in the trench that led from the landing pad to the gates. Only insulated by chem warmers and the snow's own shroud. When the prisoners stumbled by, blind, shivering, she rose and joined them. Just reaching that point had taken almost a year. At first, Shed tracked Kavarian to his old laboratory on the fallen citadel world of Ataraxes. But the place was empty. Only a data crypt, filled with scorched cogitator blocks, and a furnace piled with bones. Still, it was enough. A trail. Among the charred remains, she found cranial ports of every make and forge, each one bearing the stamp of the Adeptus Mechanicus. Kavarian had been there. And wherever had gone, the wave of piracy in the Melic archipelago followed. 20 worlds. And only one clue. Psychoraxa remembered the moment it clicked. She'd been scanning the ruined vault, watching the cracked screens loop static. Cold, she whispered. He needed cold. The cogitators had overheated. Kavarian, mad genius that he was, had fed warp-tainted demon code into data clusters so vast they bled entropy. But he'd missed one thing: the local climate had shifted. Winter on Ataraxes used to last 6 months. Now it lasted 3. Summer had come. Hot. Wet. Too warm for the processors that housed his virus-forged minds. He needed a deep freeze. And nowhere in the archipelago was colder than the glacial pole of Saga Kappa. Zeta Station had been officially abandoned for 2 millennia. Whatever research once occurred there had long since faded into myth, buried under Mechanicus secrecy. But a low-orbit probe, scanning for thermal signatures, found faint flickers, like coals beneath snow. A ring-shaped structure. Venting heat. Beneath its conversion dome, machines glowed. Data vaults. Open to snow. Closed to everything else. Dropping directly into the sanctum was impossible. So Shed returned to the temple. And let the surgeons cut. They installed a data port at the base of her skull. A risk rarely authorized, but necessary. Only the Calidus could attempt such madness. She healed quickly. The polymorphine helped. But the implant was the true secret. Beneath that jack wasn't a standard mind interface. It was an isolated machine spirit, a false mind. Segmented. Firewalled. A decoy. She watched it work. But she never felt it. A hollow mind Kavarian could scan, but never pierce. It was the only way in. To gain entry to Zeta Station, she had to be infected with the Chorv essence. And she had to pass Kavarian's scrutiny. Once her mission was complete, that machine fragment would be destroyed. I won't let him touch me, she told her handler via encrypted vox. I won't let that filth crawl into my thoughts. And I don't want him finding the virus code either. When they jammed the infospike into her skull, Shed felt real fear. The essence slithered across her mind's shell, whispering heresies in coded phrases, sliding across her visual feed like corrupted prayers. But the barrier held. The firewall kept her true mind pure. The here tech suspected nothing. Every tech thrall trembled when the spike carved through their mind. Fear was expected. Individual reactions meant nothing here. The experiment was in scale, not subtlety. It was Slav Igor himself who had implanted the infospike into Psychoraxa. "Thank me later," he had said coldly. "Because of me, your death will not be in vain." Despite the shield against data corruption, Psychoraxa glimpsed the torrent of false consciousness within the decoy mind, an unyielding command directing her to the weapons manufactorum. The assassin, stumbling, had obediently followed the other thralls. A whole week she spent at the assembly line, assembling trigger mechanisms for radium carbines. There, she mimicked the others, her broken mind song blending with theirs, their chants tight and bitter, "We are the transformed. Our minds freed from the shackles of false gods made of flesh and metal. Renewed by the eightfold strength." Her chance to escape came during a breach, when the protective envelope around the radium charging chambers shattered. Evacuation was ordered, and Psychoraxa slipped away, carrying a box of spare parts as if entrusted to do so. Seeking the highest-ranking cultist with minimal augmetics, she nearly collided with Slav Igor himself as he headed to the day shift. Parts clattered to the floor, echoing hollowly through the empty corridor. He sneered with contempt at the stooped servitor before him, "Learn to plot your course, little bitch," but Slav Igor died before his words could finish, collapsing to the floor. Now, climbing the grated steel ladder beside the colossal dome of the ice station, Psychoraxa grasped the true scale of her mission. Behind her, chaos reigned, red laser beams flashed wildly as Skitarii fired indiscriminately, perhaps even into each other. "Keep going, Vol," she whispered. Below and to the right, rows of thralls connected to control simulators. To the left, a hypnotized brigade constructed a scale-betten bunker. From directly beneath, the crackle of laser fire rang through the grating. Psychoraxa's gaze fell upon a lethal maze, reminiscent of the ones in the Calidus temple where Shed trained. 2 squads of servitors drifted through the labyrinth, marked in red and blue paint across their chests and ribs. They staggered like marionettes, barely holding las pistols and automatics, firing blindly at each other. "Poor bastards," she muttered as one worker fell, cut down by an enemy no more than 10 paces away. The shooter's face twisted in terror and disbelief as she shuffled forward, stood over the wounded man, and emptied a burst into his back, only to be shredded moments later by an automatic volley. The next stage, Psychoraxa thought. The Chorvescence was an effective mnemonic virus, seizing minds augmented with machine parts, turning victims into flesh and metal golems. But its use was limited, it required direct upload into the augmented brain. Perfect for uprisings, but not scalable. Not contagious. The broadcast version controlling the marionettes was still in alpha testing. This wide-area strain spread via astropathic transmission, carrier beams, or radio waves. Warp energy, channeled through mass chanting, posed no serious threat to ordinary soldiers or civilians. Yet the virus became dangerously contagious when reaching the mechanicues or astrotelepaths, who listened closely to the litany and preserved it perfectly in mind. Eliminating Kavarian alone wouldn't suffice. Psychoraxa's mission was to destroy the Chorvescence itself, along with all data and research on the virus, and any successors in development. Her code injector would be crucial. She deactivated her implanted false consciousness with a mental impulse, ensuring Kavarian wouldn't suspect that one of his thralls had strayed so far from their post. Light on her feet, she climbed the decrepit stairway made of clamps, testing each step with her hands, shifting weight close to the joints. At the top, in the station's most forsaken sectors, beyond the reach of weekly anti-corrosion mists, the structure had badly deteriorated. Acid rain corroded the rubber coatings that protected the metal, and condensation from heating had done its damage. The upper vaults were lost in damp mist, concealing sight and scrambling the signal of Kavarian's probing mind. Here, Psychoraxa hid her weapons. Reaching the connecting bridge, she ran and leapt over a 2-meter gap between platforms. Her bulky Slav Igor body landed heavier than expected, making the long catwalk sway on its hanging chains. Regaining balance, Psychoraxa bent toward the injector embedded in her right thigh muscle. Pressing her thumb against the capsule, she searched for the activator, then inhaled deeply and triggered it. With the polymorphine came pain, inseparable, like a conjoined twin. Soft bubbles deflated in her belly, shedding the bulk of the Slav Igor form. Her limbs shortened and bent. Her face smoothed, like hot wax, shaping back into familiar features. Come on, she murmured. The process always hurt. But the pain was less when returning to herself. She felt her sinewy muscles tighten and strengthen, shedding excess weight. The Calidus maintained excellent physical condition, unlike the targets she impersonated, who rarely possessed such athleticism. Sycoraxa felt as if a heavy burden was lifted. The intoxicating thought that soon she would fully command her own body, rebuilt, enhanced, her true vessel of being. She lay face down, slid her hand beneath the decking, and found a plastic pouch sealed with magnets. While wearing her previous identity, she had hidden it inside her abdomen, disguised as a cancerous tumor or a melon-sized cyst. Only as Slav Igor did she gain the freedom to hide it here. Within minutes, she had donned her synthetic leather suit, no hood, assembled and strapped vambraces with a phased blade onto her forearms. The neuroshredder clipped to her belt was connected to the power pack along with the blade. She hoisted her pack onto her shoulders, tightening the straps snugly. Just as she was about to pull the sweat-soaked cloak over her gear, clicking sounds echoed rhythmically, like the scuttle of wood-boring insects, or the ticking of a mechanical chronometer winding down. The Calidus doctrine emphasized speed and multitasking. As she finished dressing, Sycoraxa scanned the surroundings, dividing them into sectors, checking behind, sides, front, and above. Nothing. 15 meters overhead, where the dome's unusual air currents curled, fog thickened. From the damp veil hung loops of cable like jungle vines. Bundles of wiring swayed as if a giant bird had just landed, then taken flight. Far below, the station glowed with a strangely soothing orange light. The tiny marionette thralls trapped in the deadly labyrinth looked no larger than her thumb. A noise broke the silence again. Clenching her fist, the agent extended her xenoblade and locked it in place. Black metal shimmered with green iridescence, pushing back the darkness. Calidus looked upward. A creature fell toward her, silent and heavy as stone. She heard the slap of synthetic skin and the whistle of air through claws and shut turbines. But all she saw was a constellation of violet circles. She rolled to the side just as the beast crashed down where she had just been standing. Steel claws gouged dents into the metal flooring. The creature snapped its head toward her with a jerk, its multifaceted lenses casting a sideways glance. The insectal chatter morphed into a piercing vox screech. Leather wings. Blackened steel limbs. A respirator tangled with rubberized tubes. A pistol and a taser stinger, its dynamo sparking wildly.